A 1000ug trip report by Pretty Mushy, uploaded to the Shroomery forums 7 years and 10 months ago. I see a lot of people looking for LSD and wanting to take more and more. I have a lot of experience and searched long and hard for good stuff. My reasoning at the beginning was if I have to take more than 5 to get nice visuals, it was weak as hell. I spent multiple months doing and finding better and better stuff, till one day I met a man who told me, "Be careful with this. This is laid how it was back in the day, it's no joke." Before this I had taken 5 strips, 10 strip, 20 strips. I knew this stuff was strong because off of one I had very intense visuals and a strong body and nice warping. This is my story of 5. This report has been mostly edited for easier reading. A lot more went on than what is described below, but so much happened I don't always remember every detail. It comes in waves. You need to first test that it is real, then test the strength of each dose. This, with a test kit, came back dark purple. I took 5 hits of LSD and had slight warping already at around 15 minutes in, and at about 30 minutes, the ceiling was tearing away from the wall. My girlfriend started talking to me asking if something, well, I'm not quite sure what it was at the time because her face started turning into puzzle pieces. There were dark outlines around each piece, and as I looked really hard at her face, the pieces started to explode, showing the flesh underneath the puzzle, and then starting to reform back on her face. She then said, "Hey," and I kind of snapped out of it and I could hear, "Do you mind if I use this pipe?" But as I started to look into her eyes, they transformed into nebulas, and I could see into the abyss of space through her eyes. I never did answer her, because my world was being turned upside down. We went inside and she started painting on a canvas. She asked me to pass her the paint, and I put my fingers in it and tried to give her it on my fingers. After this I went to the other side of the room and noticed I was sweating. So I wiped my forehead off with my hand and noticed all the sweat was turning to gold. Then everything I touched turned into pure gold, soft and flaky. So I started picking things up and throwing them across the room, breaking everything, saying, "It doesn't matter, it's turning into gold, we're rich." She got me to sit down and tried to get me to meditate, so I sat down and got in a position, took a deep breath, and all of a sudden I was in a test tube, a bit like in the Matrix, with fields of people all around me. A bunch of reptiles was staring at me, and I could feel something like a wire coming from the back of my head. So I ripped it out and jumped up screaming, "Nah, fuck this, fuck this, fuck this." As I got up and started walking, my back fence turned into morphing reptiles. There were hundreds under the ground I was walking on as well. They were making up everything around me. My girlfriend stood in front of me and turned into one of these reptiles. I teleported to a bird's eye view of the neighbourhood, and they were telling me how they were informing the human population slowly and plotting down new houses and neighbourhoods to give each person that was enlightened a new house. I then teleported down into one of the neighbourhoods, and there were thousands of people all around me congratulating me on becoming one of the enlightened ones. For the people who couldn't be there, they had television cameras and were broadcasting live the events to other people who had been enlightened as well. They told me everyone on the other side would be successful in everything they did. There was no poverty or suffering on the other side. There was a point during the trip that I had teleported to outside the universe, and God told me I had to create a new one. He gave me a display with all the options, and it was so overwhelming I didn't know what to do. I tried to add planets, then think that they were wrong, backtracking again and placing planets in other spots. When I came back from that, someone told me I would only be at peace if I watched my girlfriend die, because she was going to die someday anyways, and she needed to come to the other side. As I heard this, I looked at her, and her neck slit wide open, and blood started pouring out. She said, "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" I then teleported to a jail cell where people were telling me I had just killed my girlfriend. I was sitting in the corner of the cell covered in blood with people staring at me. One was playing a Game Boy. What the fuck? I ended up teleporting back, so I tried to go to the bathroom and only half my dick was there. As I was pissing, I pissed blood. I got so frightened that I couldn't even go back to the restroom. By the end of the trip, I had hallucinated that my stomach had been slit open, and I watched my intestines fall out of my body as I tried to put pressure on the wound and keep them in. I had seen someone run over to me with a piece of glass, sit down next to me, and cut my ballsack wide open. After my peak, I came to in a pool of blood, butt-ass naked. I had shattered multiple bottles and was walking in glass the whole time. The next day, I went back to the location and none of the blood was real. I got into my girlfriend's paint and wiped circles of paint all over the floor where I was in a circle. I was in complete shock for one full day after. I couldn't say more than 2 words at a time, and I didn't comprehend language enough to speak. The trip lasted a total of 12 hours. I came out of the peak around hour 10. From hour 1 to 10, the world as we know it did not exist, and I only have brief moments of reality. Your sitters are demons, plotting against you, really just trying to take you home. You hear them plotting back and forth about what to do with you. 6 months later, I took 1.5 of the same stuff, and it brought me right back to the same level trip, watching a comet hurl towards the sun and explode, creating a black hole in front of my eyes. Know yourself, know your substance, know your sources, people. Things can go bad very quickly if it's potent, and you should be prepared for this. And as always, good vibes.